Is Warcry Games Workshop's best games for beginners? I think there's a strong argument to say it is, and I'm going to talk about why in this video. Hi, my name's Rich, and you're watching Warhammer Time. So I've got some of my Warcry stuff set up on the table here, and pretty much everything I've got on the table, apart from this dude, is from the Heart of Girth box set. Not sure how easy that is to get a hold of, but what I'm going to talk about really is the game itself. It doesn't need to be this box set. You can pick up the Hunter and Hunted box set plus the core book, and you will be able to play the game. You might be able to find other older starter sets on the internet, on eBay, or from your friendly local game store. There will inevitably be other sets in the future as well. What I'm talking about today is the core game and why it might be Games Workshop's best game for beginners. So for beginners, I mean people who are perhaps not au fait with war games, perhaps not au fait with Warhammer. If you walk past a Warhammer or Games Workshop shop and you look through the windows and you see all of the cool figures, and you maybe see some people shopping but also some people playing games, or you have seen on TikTok or YouTube people talking about Space Marines or Caradron Overlords or Eldari, you might think, I haven't got a clue where to begin with all of this. Now, there is a lot of lore in all of Games Workshop's games, in all of Games Workshop's properties. That's one thing. But in terms of games, Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Age of Sigmar are complicated games with many layers of complexity. Horus Heresy is a little bit simpler. The Middle Earth Strategy Battle game is something slightly different, and is the one game that Games Workshop make, I think, that doesn't fall under the Warhammer label, as great as it is. What Games Workshop also do is a number of what they call skirmish games. Now, if you're a historical wargamer, or if you are a traditional wargamer, you would probably say that everything Games Workshop make is a skirmish game. Warhammer 40,000, arguably, not that arguably, it's a skirmish game. It's skirmish level. It might be platoon level skirmish. What Games Workshop mean by skirmish level game is gang level skirmish or crew level skirmish. So we are talking about small numbers of figures. So let me remove that Centurion for a minute, my Centaur Ian. If you look at the miniatures that I've got over on the table here, I've got 2 full warbands for Warcry. All of these came in the, not sure if they're all, oh, I'm moving them the wrong way. I'll get them on camera the other way. Anyway, all of these came in Heart of Girth. If you buy Hunter and Hunted, you will also get 2 warbands. If you buy other sets, you will also get a warband or 2 warbands. You can buy warbands individually. This is all you need to play Warcry for one set of these for one player. So this is a 2-player starter set we're talking about here. I've got the Horns of Hashut here and the Rotmire Creed here, and that's it. You do not need to buy additional models. I bought this one mainly, my Centaur Ian, Centurion Marshall. I bought that mainly because it's a super cool model, but also I can use it in either of these warbands by swapping out, or I can use it in my Age of Sigmar armies. Actually, I can use these warbands in Age of Sigmar's armies as well. And they all fit the same army. They all actually fall under Slaves to Darkness. So if you're thinking about playing Age of Sigmar, but you'd rather dip your toe into some skirmish stuff, you've got some options here. Similarly with some of the other boxes, Hunter and Hunted, which I did an unboxing of, you've got a Cities of Sigmar warband, and then you've got an Ogre warband as well. But anyway, here you've got a couple of Slaves to Darkness ones. So why is this potentially the best Games Workshop starter game, beginner game to get people involved in? So yeah, when I talk about beginners, I'm not just talking about people that walk past the shop. I'm not just talking about younger people, kids and young adults who might know about Warhammer but not know how to get in, but also people who are into the other games and don't know whether this is worth playing, or are into other wargaming but not Games Workshop. So what are the advantages? Now, one of them you can already see. This is a 2x4 table. It's not even a proper table. This is a pasting table that costs £25–30 from a hardware store. Now, I bought 2 of these to put together to have a 2x4 table on which I was going to play war games. I tend to have this simple 2x4 set up because the other one's outside now so that the dog can pee when it rains. I tend to have this set up as more of a desk, and I do my talking to camera on it, and I do a bit of painting, a bit of making. You can play Warcry on this surface, and that means you can play Warcry on your kitchen table and your living room table and probably your kitchen work surface. You can play this game on a desk. This is the official surface area. I think it's 22 inches by 30 inches. Certainly that's what Kill Team is, and I think it's the same. This is the only space you need. You can take it on holiday, you can play it in a caravan. You can also take it to school, you can take it to college, you can take it to clubs. So it doesn't need loads and loads of space. The terrain, I've got a lot of terrain here, and I will also say, now I clearly haven't finished painting this, but the paint I've put on this, I think I've done 3 colours here. This is Games Workshop contrast paint. I've got a brown one, a lighter brown one, a lighter brown one again, and a grey, so 4 colours. This painting took no time at all. Now, it's not great painting. I'm never going to come on camera and say that I'm really good at painting miniatures, but from the distance the camera is at, it probably looks all right. That said, there's still a lot of white there, I know, but it's better than, you know, grey plastic. So all of this terrain came in the Heart of Gerd box set, and all of the box sets will come with terrain, and that's important. It's much more important than the big battle games that you have terrain in a skirmish game, because your characters will hide behind it, but also a lot in this game will use the different levels to move around, maybe jump down on people, or maybe claim objectives that are on a different level. Also, on, you know, some terrain has features. There's a horn on this one that can be blown that has special features. So it doesn't take up much space. So there's not that enormous investment in terms of where you're going to put the game, how you're going to store the game. There is also less investment in time and money with this game compared to the big properties. So in terms of money, you can buy a box and play the game. You can buy Heart of Gerd, you can buy the other star sets, you can buy Hunter and Hunted, but you also do need the core group with that, core book with that, but even so, it's not going to come to an awful lot of money. But you also know what you're spending. You are not going to buy something and immediately think, oh, I need to buy that as well. I need to buy that as well. No, that's sometimes Games Workshop mess that up, and I think in some box sets, in some starter sets, or what they've called starter sets, you buy something and immediately need something else. In this, you get the miniatures, you get this cardboard board, you get the terrain, you get cards, and you know, anyone who's watched any of my videos where I talk about rule sets knows that I'm a big fan of cards, and I'll get onto that. You get the dice, you get the tokens, you get the measuring device. You don't even need to find your own ruler and or tape measure. And most people into any games at all have got 1,000 dice by now, but it's always nice to have more, and these are color coded for a reason. Actually, you can, the reason there are 3 colors of dice is one player, the other player, to have their ability dice, and then the dice that you roll throughout the rest of the game. So you've got everything you need in the set, so that's good. So investment financially, never going to claim that Games Workshop is a cheap hobby, or Warhammer is a cheap hobby. Never going to claim that wargaming is a cheap hobby. I'm not sure, outside of reading, how many cheap hobbies there are. If you take up golf, it's got its expenses. If you take up even watching sports, it has its expenses. If you take up going to the cinema, it has its expenses. So there are cheaper, there are more expensive hobbies. It's not a cheap hobby. I'm never going to say that. But you will get plenty of hours of play in a single box set for something like Warcry, more so than I would imagine with the bigger games. Other skirmish games by Games Workshop, Kill Team, I think you'll get plenty of hours of play out of a box set for that. And Necromunda I don't know very well. Hopefully I will at some point, and we can talk about that in the future. Other games, maybe like Star Wars Shatterpoint, I'm just looking to see my line of sight there. That actually does lack scenarios. That's one thing that Warcry does not lack. You've got an infinite number of scenarios. So, investments for space, investment for money, not a massive thing. And investment for time is smaller. So, you walked past that shop, you saw the massive armies. That's what you're lacking in skirmish games. You are not getting massive armies. You're not getting huge numbers of beautifully painted miniatures. You are talking about a half dozen to a dozen miniatures for your forces. But that means that you've got less time to put them together, less time painting them if you want to paint them. You don't, of course, you don't have to paint miniatures to play with them. You do have to put them together to play with them, otherwise you're just like throwing sprues at each other, which is just a bit weird. Less time to do that. Now, the terrain, some of the terrain, sorry, not all of the terrain, all of these bits around here, the small stuff, the scatter terrain and the ladders, either don't need any construction at all or were a doddle. The trees I found slightly more difficult, and the stuff from Hunter and Hunted, these pit stuff, the Moor pits, notoriously it's in 2 sections, and I said in the review, I love the fact it's in 2 sections, that's great. Well, it doesn't fit together very well. There's some gapping going on there. How much that bothers you is you know, an individual thing, but you've got it all. So the time to put it together and the time to paint it is relatively small compared to lots of other things. Again, if you're looking outside of Games Workshop, if you're looking at Star Wars Shatterpoint, the miniatures take a lot less time to put together in that than they would do in this, because even though you've got a few of them, a Games Workshop sprue is a complicated thing, and a miniature might have 8 or 9 pieces to it. Shatterpoint is going to have about 5. A Song of Ice and Fire, it's going to have 1. It's always 1. It's just a miniature. You take it out, you put it on the table, it's ready to play. So, some argument there about the investment in time. The investment in time playing, though, again, can be much shorter. I can teach you this game and play this game again, play a game with you in half an hour. That is not true of most war games, even most skirmish games. Why is that the case? Small forces, but simple rules. There are not the layers, and this is the big thing for me. If you're going to get someone into the hobby, get someone into Warhammer, get someone into Games Workshop games, or maybe even wargaming at all, some games will put people off with the layers of rules. I'm talking about Age of Sigmar. I'm definitely talking about older 40k. I have not played 10th, so I don't know. I know there's been some efforts to simplify, but historically, definitely 40k. Horus Heresy and Middle-earth strategy game, not as bad. Kill Team, pretty good. Happy with that. We're going to talk about Kill Team in the next video, I think. Warcry is the simplest of them all. It is so lovely in terms of its simplicity. I like genuinely thinking about trying to teach this to my children. My son is 5. I don't think he has the patience for it. Rather, you know, he'll be happy if he's winning and stuff's dying. Excuse the noise there. And my daughter's 10 and she's just not into this stuff. If they were all cute, she would play it, but they're not cute at all. Now, where does that simplicity come from? And does it lessen the game? So, simplicity comes from, firstly, all the information that you need for the character you're going to use is on a card, which you can put in front of you. You've got a small board area, so I've got a playing area here. I can put all of the cards I need in front of me. More importantly, you do not have the layers of rules that some of the more complicated rules have. This is a character, I know what he does because the information's there. All characters attack the same way. All characters defend, or not defend really in this game the same way. They die the same way. They all move approximately the same way. There are special rules for each faction, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 abilities for my Creed, for example. And they can only use the ones which they have rolled specific dice for. So you're only looking at that if you've got the dice rolls for them. So at the beginning of your turn, or the turn, you roll 6 dice, and if you've got any doubles, trebles, or quadruples within the results of those dice, you can put them aside and use them for abilities. The singles do something else. It's not complicated. Other than that, you are taking it in turns to activate one figure at a time. The movement is on here, and the number of wounds they've got is on here, and the strength of the weapon they have and the toughness that they have is on there. The strength of the weapon that you have versus the toughness of the person that you're fighting determines what you need to roll on the dice, whether it needs to be so whether you are stronger, the same, or weaker than them determines what you need to score on the dice. You roll the number of dice determined by the number of attacks, and that's how much damage you do. And the damage, if you roll a 6, is critical. So for example, this guy here, just picking up one at random, don't even know his name, his normal attack does 2 damage, but if you roll a 6, he does 5 damage. He's got 4 attacks, so you get in with him, you roll 4 dice. I'm going to roll 4 dice now just as an example. And let's assume that I needed 4s, which is very common because if my strength and toughness is the same, I need a 4. I've got 1 normal hit, so that does 2 damage, and I've got a 6, so that does 5 damage. I've done 7 damage. If I was fighting against this character here, he's got 10 wounds. I've taken 7 off him. Pretty simple. So you can also tell it's quite bloodthirsty, or at least it's bloodthirsty if you are using the gangs with lots and lots of figures. If you're playing against a chap like this, he's got, like, I think off the top of my head, 35 wounds. So simplicity in terms of the rules, but you've still got the tactics in there, because not only have you got the different abilities that you can use depending on what cards you come out, the setup of every game is likely to be different, because you have, when you set up the game, and there are different ways of doing it. If you just want to chuck some terrain on the table and play against your mates, of course you can do that, and often that's what people want to do. But the other thing you can do is you have these cards, and you have a card that tells you how to set up the terrain that you've got in the set that you've bought. So all of these cards match what I've got in Heart of Dirt here. And then you have a card that tells you how your force deploys. How it does that is it splits every force into 3 different icons, and it tells you where those icons have to be. So you usually decide which bits of your force go into each icon, which are called different things, and then that's how you deploy. Then there is a victory condition. It tells you any additional things, any special things as to how you win, whether it's about controlling an area, whether it's about gaining victory points, or whether it's just about killing, or all sorts of other things. Lots of options that I haven't played through yet. So you've got that on there, that's how you win. And then there's a twist, and that might be a special rule, a change rule. You play that horn and something happens, or an earthquake's going to come, or the plague is happening. So if you think about the fact that these 4 decks are all quite chunky, and you get other decks in the expansions, you have got so many. I'm not good enough at maths, I'm not even going to begin, but so many different combinations of setups that you can play. Also means you are not having the situation that I get when I play a Song of Ice and Fire against my friend Joe, where he knows what we're doing in advance, he builds an army for it, and he just smashes me because he's better at that kind of preemptive tactical thinking. You have to change your plans on the hoof if you use those decks. You don't have to use those decks. You can just play casually, chuck some stuff down, kill each other. Of course you can. One of the other things about this game, which I think is, which might suck people in, is if you've only got this force of 12 guys, 15 dudes, 6 dudes, less, whatever, you can personalise it, and all of the rules for all, I'm looking for a book now, and I've got one here, do excuse me. So this is the Rotten Ruin Warband Tome. It came in Heart of Gur, but you can also buy it separately, and this is the tome. So similar to a codex or a battle tome for the 40k or Age of Sigmar, but it covers 2 warbands for all of their rules and their background, and also a campaign similar, if you play the bigger games, to a Path of Glory campaign. Really, it's a narrative campaign. You've got a story, you do this battle, and then depending on the outcome, you do this battle or this battle. You can adapt and change and big up and what's the word I'm looking for? You can improve your fighters, you can give them new skills and stuff as you go on through a campaign. But also you've got stuff like name generators, background generators, origins and stuff. So you can get some really role-playing game elements into this, which I think will be appealing to players that don't want to play something like 40k or Age of Sigmar. It does appeal to me. I'm really hoping to do it. I'd love to give all of these guys names. He's going to be Jim McBob, and he's going to be Odorous Bile, or something. It doesn't matter, but it is going to be fun. So I can see that appealing. But yeah, I mean, the basics are basics. The other thing that I haven't, no, I think I did talk about the attacks, but the other thing is the attacks are a single roll. It's not a hit roll, a to wound roll, a save roll, and then potentially a ward roll, and then a special rule that undoes any of those things. No, you roll the dice, you need to score something, and if you score it, you either do the damage or you do the critical damage. So, lots of positives for me about Warcry. I've also really talked, despite the fact obviously I opened this box a long time ago, I've talked a lot about how Heart of Gur is a great set. I'm really enjoying it, and I do think that I can get limitless games out of this, certainly months, if not years of play out of this without adding anything to it unless I want to, and I do want to, because I'm a hobbyist and a collector, and I've already bought this guy and I've already bought Hunter and Hunted, but that's fine. But if I am 12 and my brother's 13 and my sister's 15, we can buy this together, or we can get this for Christmas, and we can play it for years without needing that extra stuff. And I think for a beginner set, or to get someone into the hobby, that is really important. On my previous videos, someone commented, I talked about the Legions Imperialis box set, or starter set, and how I was uninspired by it, and it didn't feel like it was going to provide what the vision of that game should be. That is not the case with Warcry. This is about close quarters, getting up in each other's faces and fighting and grabbing objectives, and then going on and telling a story with your guys. You can do all of that in a way that perhaps you couldn't with that other box. So yeah, I'm all for it. Let me know what you think. Now, one thing I've been very clear that I haven't said in this video is that this is Games Workshop's best game. I think it might well be Games Workshop's best beginner's game. What Games Workshop's best game is going to be a matter of taste. And as I said, there are things that a skirmish game doesn't do that a bigger scale game does. A different itch to be scratched, if you will. And maybe we'll talk about that in the next video.